You hit 5-star?
5 star.
5-star.
Conference recording started.
All right. Somebody's panicking.
Somebody's car is going. Robin, hurry up. Don't come back that way. Go around, because you in the video.
When you want to know.
All right. Let's have a word of prayer. Master God, we thank you, we praise you for your love and kindness. Thank you for grace and mercy. Thank you, dear Lord, for the privilege and the honor that you afford us to be your people. As we gather in this holy place tonight, God, we ask that you would speak to our hearts and our minds. That all that we do and say, God, be to your glory and to your honor. But most of all, dear God, we pray that we would hear, understand, and allow your word to create in us a desire to serve you, a heart that is committed to you. So God, we surrender now. We ask that your divine purpose be accomplished. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. We're looking at the various miracles of Christ and trying to discern from the work of the Lord on the earth, the miracles that he worked, what that means to us, because his miracles are more than a simple display of power. It's more than AAA coming to rescue somebody. He does what he does when he does it in order to leave for us a legacy, a track record, a lesson, to teach us how to serve him and what does life that honors God, what does that look like? What is that? How does that lead us and guide, direct us? So that's what we're going to continue to look at tonight. So if you have your Bible or your devices, let's go to Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8. Make your way to verse 23. Now, just so you know that this miracle account is actually, it's in all the synoptics. It's in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. When you read it in those three books, three gospels, pay attention to what's around it, because they're writing to different churches, different groups of people, and they actually tell this story in a way that highlight certain aspects about Jesus' character. Matthew's writing, he's writing to a group of Jewish believers, or people who are at least care enough to investigate Jesus. He's writing to folk who grew up honoring Jehovah and creating their life in the temple. The temple and the Jewish way of life, the customs, the traditions, the way that they dealt with things, that was very important to Matthew's audience. So he's writing to them and telling the story in a way that says to them that Jesus is the truth of Jehovah's revelation. He's the truth of what the temple was supposed to be teaching us. Jesus is really what Judaism was trying to get at. It is found in the Christ. One of the parables or the things that Jesus says just before this text is, he says, "Let the dead go bury their own dead, and you come follow me," just as a way of context here. But you have to understand that for Jewish people, burial rituals was very important. It was critical. You showed honor and respect to people, making sure that they were prepared the right way and buried within a certain amount of hours, and you just didn't handle folk that way. And here Jesus says, "Let the dead bury their own dead, and you come follow me," which starts to shape for us his understanding of who he really should be followed. That he is somehow, Jesus is saying, following him is more critical and more important than following your traditions, the rituals, the laws that you've grown up with. So he's challenging and wrestling with them, not only about, people say, well, that's how I was raised. So he's wrestling with them not just on how you were raised, but the foundation upon which you have built your faith and your legacy and what you understood to be God honoring. Jesus is saying you had the right idea, but the wrong implementation. You got the message, but you applied it in the wrong place. Mm-hmm. It's not the temple. It's me. It's not the sacrifice. It's me. And so when we look at this, just kind of keep this in mind. Mark, and Luke, they write to different people. They kind of tell this story, help them tell a different story, if you will. But all three lift up Christ as the one who is supreme, the one who is in charge of all, the divine one who is above all other gods. All three of these accounts. So, Matthew chapter 8, verse 23. It says, "Then Jesus got into the boat and started across the lake with his disciples. Suddenly a terrible storm came up and waves breaking into the boat, but Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went to him and woke him up, shouting, 'Lord, save us. We're going to drown.' And Jesus answered, 'Why are you afraid? You have so little faith.' Then he stood up and rebuked the wind and the waves, and suddenly all was calm. The disciples just sat there in awe. 'Who is this?' they asked themselves. 'Even the wind and waves obey him.'" All right. Just going to walk through those few verses and we'll be done. Verse 23. "Then Jesus got into the boat and started across the lake with his disciples. Suddenly a terrible storm came up with waves breaking into the boat, but Jesus was sleeping." The first time I came across this text, the first time I ever handled it was in a sermon, and I don't remember many of the sermon titles, but this was way back when, and I was like, don't let Jesus go to sleep. But here Jesus gets in the boat with them. They go across, and he goes to sleep. But what this text should help us with is it normalizes some stuff for us, because it tells us that even when Jesus is on board, water can still get in the boat. Even when Jesus is with you, troubles still come, and it don't just stay on the outside of your life. It comes to places it shouldn't be. Water is not supposed to be in the boat. Water is not supposed to be in there. But we have this understanding, this notion that where Jesus is, trouble can't come. So we think because Jesus is in the boat, that the water at least should stay, even if you're going to act crazy, at least stay on the outside of the boat. But here we see that even when Jesus is on board, even when he is with you, and you're doing what he told you to do.
Come on.
You're trying to get to the other side. You're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to read your Bible. You're trying to be holy. You're trying to live the right way. Even when that happens, the storm that is out there sometimes comes in here. The problem there gets you wet in the boat. And so we see that Jesus, even though he's there, water that can come in. The ship can take on water. And that's not a good thing. We don't want that to happen, but it should normalize us a little bit. Because sometimes we think if I just do everything right, if I don't mess up, if I go to Bible study, if I go to church, if I pray right, if I pay my tithes, if I give this up, if I don't do that, then life should be good. And that's kind of, and then when it is not so good, and water starts coming over the side of our lives, then we got questions like, Jesus, what you doing? Because there's issues going on, okay? Now, Jesus has, his whole journey thus far has shown his power, his strength. He's the Messiah. He's the one. So Jesus in our text here represents life, like he always does. Jesus promises life. He promises us life, that he comes to give us life, and that we might have it more abundantly. He comes that we don't have to be afraid anymore. He speaks life into dead situations. Jesus promises life. But whenever we have a promise of life, whenever there's a promise that we have to hold on to, whenever there's an opportunity to be blessed, there has to be an opportunity to be cursed. There has to be a choice in the negative. See, if you can choose Jesus, you have to have the ability to dischoose, to reject him. That's the word. Dischoose, reject. You have to have the ability to reject him. If you don't have the ability to reject him, you also don't have the ability to choose him. Because a choice where there's no alternative is no choice.
Right.
So you have to have that. So if we have Jesus offering life, you have to have the storm that's threatening death.
Come on.
That's right. Yeah.
See, if you're going to have the good life, then there has to be the possibility of a life that is not so good. If what you're going to have is real, then you have to be astute enough to identify and reject the false. Because you can't have real without fake. You can't have good without bad. You can't have holy without sinful. They go together. So here we have Jesus giving us life. He's offering life. And in the text, what you have is this storm threatening death. So here is where we trip up. I do sometimes, and sometimes we get a little beside ourselves. It's because the human predicament that we find ourselves, the human situation, is this, y'all. We either have to trust and have faith in a sleeping Jesus, or believe the evidence of a chaotic storm.
Yeah.
Say that again.
We either have to trust and have faith in a sleeping Jesus, or be challenged by and put our faith and confidence in a chaotic storm. Because, and the truth of the matter is, most of the time, when the storms of life are raging, we're going through with difficult places, it seems like Jesus is asleep. We're like, well, Lord, where are you? What's going on? What are you doing? What's happening? That's how most of us, we react to God when trouble comes. God, why me? And what is going on? And what's your hand? What are you doing? What are you telling me? What are you trying to accomplish in my life? We have all these what questions and how questions and why come questions and where are you, as though he's lost. We ask him, where are you in this thing, Lord? Because when the storms happen, it seems like Jesus, while on board, is asleep. And so we don't really know what to do with that. So either we have to have faith in a sleeping Jesus, or we respond to a raging storm, a chaotic storm. And most of us, unfortunately, we respond to the chaotic storm. It's the raging storm that drive us, and we lose sight of the sleeping Jesus. Verse 25. The disciples went to him and woke him up, shouting, Lord, save us. We're going to drown. Okay. The disciples, like us, were animated by the storm's chaos rather than Jesus' peace. Okay? Jesus is resting in the ship. I don't get it. Water is, the boats are small. I mean, they ain't like a cruise liner. Water is coming over in the boat. Jesus got to be getting wet. And he is still asleep. He is in so much peace in the middle of this storm that getting him wet that he don't even wake up. He's asleep. And you know it's a serious thing because they say we drowning. There's enough water here to make us think that we're going to drink something. So the water is coming over, right? And so they're saying and Jesus is there asleep. So they're animated. They're put into motion, not by attaching themselves to and hooking up to the peace that Jesus has. They take action because they hook up to the chaos of the storm.
Wow.
And sometimes that's what we do.
Yeah.
We respond, but we respond, we're animated, not by the peace of the Christ. We're animated by the chaos of the storm. And we say we're moving as Christians, and we live like Christians, and we try to respond to the storm like Christians, but we lose all sense of peace and comfort and rest because the storm has spilled over into our space, into our Jesus space. And so we have this situation where we're animated, we move, we're excited by the storm and not the peace. They had a choice, and they chose react to the storm rather than hold on to the peace. Now, that's hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard. It's hard. It's difficult. But it's doable. But it's difficult. It's difficult. They called on Jesus. Here's where Matthew is helping us move away from that tradition thing a little bit. They called on Jesus to do what only Jehovah was supposed to do. They called on Jesus to save them. See, for us, it's natural.
Right.
Jesus in the boat, he's Messiah, he's Jesus. We call Jesus.
Right.
But for them, calling Jesus instead of Jehovah is a big deal. Calling Jesus the itinerant preacher rather than calling the creator is a real big deal. And so Matthew is saying, look who they go to in this time. They don't call on Jehovah. They don't call on the creator. They don't say Adonai. They don't say Yahweh. They go and they wake up Jesus. And look at the irony there. What God do you have to wake up?
Oh, that's good.
They go and wake him up. So there's enough drive, fear, whatever it is, to go and wake up the one that they want to do what only the creator can do.
Yeah.
And what does save mean? Save in this situation mean make the weather behave. Okay? Only the creator can make the weather behave. Only the God of creation can make that happen. So what do? They get up, they go to Jesus, they wake him up and say, do what God can do. Do your God thing. And so Matthew is helping us see that going to Jesus and asking Jesus to do what only God can do is a real powerful and a real good thing to do, because that's a good choice. Even if you feel you don't know what he's doing all the time, you feel like you got to go wake him up and you got to pray, God, you know what's going on. Why I got to ask you? I mean, whatever it is, we can go and we can make that happen, because that's where you go. So they asked Jesus to do what only God can do, and that's control nature and quiet the storm. Now, so they went to him and they said, Lord, bless you. Lord, save us. We're going to drown. Okay? So I need y'all to be with me here a little bit, okay? Walk with me here a little bit, because it's going to it might sound a little crazy in the beginning, but it'll make sense by the time we get to the finish line. they wasn't afraid of the storm. You with me? They weren't afraid of the storm. They were afraid of drowning. Okay? Now, so many times we see the threat coming that we mislabel what the threat is. That's how Paul said, you don't wrestle against flesh and blood. It ain't the person. So nobody keeps the wrapping paper. You go inside to the gift, right? So here, the storm is just the wrapping paper. The storm is just, so they're not really afraid of the storm. They're afraid of dying. They're afraid of drowning, which means, take it further, not just afraid of this idealistic or this idea of drowning, not afraid of the concept of drowning, not afraid of thinking about drowning. They're afraid of the consequence of the result of drowning, which is called death. So what they're really afraid of, they really wake him up about, is dying. Lord, save us, because us is dying. We're going to die. We're dying here. So, we need to get here and see this, that they went to Jesus because they're afraid of dying. Turning to Jesus to meet your immediate need doesn't mean you trust him or accept his ultimate plan.
They just didn't want to die.
They just didn't want to die. Turning to him to handle what you need right now. God, I need you to fix this right now. God, I need you to give me this right now. God, help me get out of this right now. God, deliver me from this right now. Well, that's a right now fix. But that doesn't mean that you accept his ultimate plan. Doesn't mean that you're going to be okay with what he does after he does this. So they went through all of that situation. They didn't want to die. But they went to Jesus and said, fix this for me now. Don't let us die. That's what it was about. And many times when we're driven by the storm, when we respond to the chaos of the storm, when we're animated by the threat of the storm, our prayer, when it boils down, is simply, don't let me die. God, don't let this thing kill me. And don't let it kill my hope. Don't let it kill my home. Don't let it kill my job. Don't let it kill my feelings. Don't let it kill my kids. Don't let it kill us. It's not God, what's your will, Lord, what are you doing, God? It's not that. It's not God, give me your peace, God, give me your comfort, God. It's not that. It is God, don't let this thing kill me. Don't let it kill my situation. Don't let it kill my circumstances. We become, in the midst of a storm now, we become very self-serving. Now, I ain't kicking that to the curb. None of us want to drown. They don't want to drown. I didn't want to see them drown. They didn't drown, which is a good thing. Don't drown. But I just want to point out to the fact that they made a choice with Jesus on board not to be at peace, but to be chaotic. And in the midst of that chaos, they assumed their end would be death. I wonder what the assumption of the end would have been if they had assumed Christ's peace.
Yeah, right?
If they had said, look, as long as Jesus ain't worried, we ain't gonna worry.
That's right.
As long as Jesus is asleep, we okay. As long as the Lord's on board, we good. Let's keep going. I wonder if they still would have assumed that it was going to end in their death. I think not. So where they chose to park their wagon, where they chose to hitch up to that determined where they went. So when they're motivated or animated by by the chaos of the storm, then what the storm is threatening is looming large. And now I'm going to die. If we focus and hook in so much to the chaos in this world around us and be so in tune and so hooked into what the madness that the enemy is creating in this world, and we miss the comfort and the security of a Christ who anchors us in it, then what the world is promising us is that which we think is going to happen. Lord, wake up, do something, or this world going to kill us. Well, no, if he's still in charge.
Amen.
So we have to come to this place where we're watching him, right? Now, I'll be the first to admit that it always makes sense. It don't always make sense. Because a question flew to my mind, and it probably, you asked it too, and that is this. Does it make sense for experienced fishermen to ask a preaching carpenter for advice during a storm at sea?
God don't make no sense.
Yeah. That's like flying in a big jet and hit turbulence, in 747 you hit turbulence, and the pilot come back and ask you, who ain't never flew anything,
Come up here and
could you come up, what should we do now? What you asking me for? We really got a problem now. No. You better get on the mic and have them send somebody up here.
fly him in.
But that's what it's like.
Yeah.
You have experienced fishermen who have fished this lake. They grew up on the lake. They fish this water all the time. They know about the storm. And now a storm blows down, and you have a preaching carpenter who's asleep. And you stop bailing or taking water out. You stop throwing water out of your boat to go wake him up, to ask him what to do to save you, and he's a carpenter. It don't make sense. But that's okay. Again, we normalize stuff because trusting Jesus didn't make sense in the social fabric of their time, and trusting Jesus don't make sense in the social fabric of our time.
That's right.
Trusting God don't make sense. You don't get a way to come and rationalize faith. You can't do it because faith is irrational.
Yes.
Faith goes beyond the limitations of time and space. And when you talk about understanding something rationally, you're locked into the boundaries of time and space. So how do you explain something greater? By trying to understand. So you see what I'm saying? So we can't allow that to happen. So what we have here is Jesus is dealing with these folks, and they said, Lord, save us. We're going to die. We're going to drown. Now, here's where Matthew is kind of different than the others. Matthew have Jesus speaking and dealing with the wind and the waves before he speaks to the disciples. Not Matthew. Mark and Luke rather have Jesus dealing with the wind and the waves before he speaks to the disciples. Here in Matthew, Jesus deals with the wind and the waves first. No, I said that backwards. After. I'm gonna get it right in a minute. I done said it wrong 4 times, but y'all understand it, right? All right. So, Mark, Luke deal with the disciples after the weather behaves. There we go. Thank you, baby. And Matthew deal with the disciples before he quiets the weather. Is that right? All right. Man, that was hard. Okay. Verse 26. It says, and Jesus answered, why are you afraid?
Why am I afraid?
You have so little faith. Then he stood up and rebuked the wind and the wave, and suddenly all was calm. So they go wake him up. Save us. We're going to die. I could just see Jesus yawning. Why are you so afraid? What you scared? You have such little faith. And then he tells the wind and the wave to behave. And they do. What are you doing, Jesus? Here in Matthew, Jesus deals with the disciples' crises of faith before he deals with the crises of storm. He deals with the fact that you're having a faith crisis. Something about that suggests that much of the stuff that knock us off the rails and much of the stuff that get in our way, it's really not the stuff. It's really a faith crisis. And we have here that Jesus is challenging them to grow by making them look at the source of their question or the source of their crisis. Why are you afraid? So it's this issue that we have of why are you so scared? Now, he's asking them that question, but he hasn't done anything with the storm yet. So most of us would say, look, right there. Is this, don't you feel that spray? Look, hey, how are you going to ask me a question like that? How are you going to ask us what? My question is why you ain't scared. So we have Jesus saying, why are you so messed up? But what that does is he has them looking at the source of their issue. What is the meaning of your lack of faith? Why is the question. So Jesus' question is, why are you afraid? Not what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid? He questioned their need, their right, and the legitimacy of their fear. Why are you afraid? Think about it now. Why are you really afraid? Think about where this fear is coming from. Why do you really have it? What would it really take to get rid of your fear? Why are you scared? He's asking them in the middle of their storm, in the middle of what they think is a crisis that's going to kill them. He asks, why are you afraid? They say, save us, and he said, why are you scared? We just said that we're going to die. Why are you afraid? When Jesus is asking the question, you see, faith, this faith that we have, this fear that comes on us, we're usually not afraid. Like I say, they weren't afraid of the storm. We're usually not afraid or fearful of the thing out there. See, it's not that I'm afraid of not having enough money at the end of the month. It's really a insufficient faith. Fear is just a result of an insufficient faith. See, I'm not afraid that I'm not going to have enough money. I just don't have enough faith that God can keep me. I'm not afraid of what the doctor might say. I just don't have enough faith right now that I got enough God to handle whatever he says. You see, the fear only creeps in. There's only room for fear where faith is vacated. When faith occupies, fear cannot. So faith has to leave before fear can occupy. So our fear is really just an insufficient amount of faith. So we see what the Lord is doing here, and he's asking them. So Jesus' question is inherent in that question is, you need more faith. That's why he says, what are you afraid of? Ye of little faith. Why are you afraid? He wasn't condemning them. He wasn't condemning them for their little faith. He was actually giving them information, giving them, what's when the doctor tell you what's wrong? There you go. Give them all of that, all of what y'all just said. He was giving them the information of why this fear is coming. Where is it coming from? Is that you don't trust the one who is with you enough in the midst of this situation. So, and so he was going on with that. So now I don't want you to miss me here. I don't want you to miss me. I am not one of the ones who, I'm not a throwback to Christianity, 20, 30 years ago, or wherever it is, where you just have to have enough faith. Just faith. You have faith. Just believe God. Just enough faith. Got enough faith. Gotta have enough faith. No, I am not. I'm not here saying that you can have enough faith. You can believe God hard enough to change everything. You just believe Him. Just believe Him. Just believe Him. Just trust Him. That ain't what I'm saying. You can have all the faith you want and say you ain't got no toothache when you got a toothache, and you just lying. That's what you're doing. If your tooth hurt and you say, I ain't got no toothache, I ain't got no toothache, I ain't got no toothache, I don't accept it, I don't accept it, I don't claim it, I ain't got no toothache, my face, I ain't got no toothache. Well, you lying. See, you got a toothache. So I'm not saying you can believe God. I just believe, I believe I put enough faith in it and I can change it. No, I can change God's mind. I can change God's heart. No, none of that. None of that. When I say we don't have enough faith, is we don't have enough faith to accept God's will, whatever it is. That's right. You see, faith says, God, I trust you no matter what it is. I trust you. I trust your decision. Now, if I get a vote, I don't want to go through it. But if it's your will that I go through it, I trust you.
Yes.
So what we have here is not fear comes when we stop trusting God and start depending on or seeing something other than our confidence in God. If I need this money or it's not going to work. Now I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough money. I need a good doctor's report. I don't know what I'm going to do. Now I'm afraid I'm going to get the wrong doctor's report. I need a new car, man, because I ain't going to be able to get to work. Then I'm going to lose my job. I ain't going to be able to go this. So I got to get a new car, and I don't know how I'm going to pay for this car. Now I'm afraid that I ain't going to get a new car, and I'm going to lose my job. Rather than say, Lord, I need a car, but I trust you. Lord, yeah, you know that this doctor's report is on my mind. I'm thinking about it. God is, but I choose to trust you. See, there's the difference. Faith says, God, I trust your hand, your will, your knowledge, I trust you. Faith ain't changing God's mind. Faith is lining up with God's mind. Faith is lining up with the will of God. Yeah. You're not directing his hand, you're submitting to his hand. That's what faith does. And that's how we live through this thing called faith. All right? So not suggesting that we can do so much. Matthew chapter 8. And we're in verse 26 right now. says, ye of little faith. Well, they woke him up.
That faith in it.
They went to him. Come on, give me some credit here, right? I didn't call Jehovah. I came. I woke you up. I pleaded my case to you. You know, I know I said what was going to happen because I don't really understand that dynamic of internal conflict within me that says save me but we gonna die. I don't quite understand that conflict happening right there. But you understand I'm excited right now. But at least there's some faith things happening here, right, Lord? So why did Jesus say ye of little faith? I think it's because our confidence is to be rooted in the Master's presence with us, not in the circumstances around us.
Yeah.
See, if we come to the place where we put our confidence in the fact that He's Emmanuel, He is God with us. He may be asleep. I may not know what He's doing, but we're in the same boat. I'm trying to do what He's asked me to do. I'm trying to be faithful to Him, and I believe He's with His presence in my life.
Yes.
Is where my faith is rooted, not in the evidence of what I think I see around me.
Yes.
I've been praying, ain't nothing changed. I've been fasting, it's still the same. Everything was good till I started coming to church. I got started coming to church and the bottom fell out. You see, you start looking at the storm around you and make a decision about how you're going to have faith in the one who is with you. Backwards.
Yes.
We need to have faith in the one who's with us. And then we can speak to the storm around us.
Yes.
We can deal with the circumstances, the situation of what's going on around us. But I do like the fact that Jesus didn't condemn their lack of faith. He just pointed it out. Because if you're going to get better, you got to point it out. If you're going to get faith muscle, you got to know that you need to go to the faith gym. You got to do that.
You have to get it at home.
If you don't, you got to make that happen. Now, here's another opportunity for us to get a little shook. Matthew is like very adamant about telling us that Jesus was with the disciples. He got in the boat with the disciples. The disciples went and woke him up. He said to the disciples. I mean, he could just say disciples once and we kind of got it, you know. He could just say he got in the boat with the disciples, and now he spoke to them. Well, who's them? The disciples in the boat with. We got it. But he just kept on letting us know the disciples. And I think that sometimes we learn here that because up until now, the disciples have seen Jesus move in everybody else's life. He's seen, other folk get healed and other people's slaves, the servants, be lifted. And, they've been dealing with other people's folk. It closest they got, I think, was Peter's mother-in-law. But now, they got to depend on the master for themselves.
Right.
Now it's their lives in the balance. It ain't no more on dry land yelling out confidence and encouragement out on the ocean. No. You got your hat in the ring now. It's you. It's your stuff. You're running from the dog looking for a car to jump on. It is you. So you're the one doing that thing going on happening now. And when that happens, when that goes on, Now it's a whole different matter. So Jesus is like, look, you got to have faith, ye a little faith. You know, you're encouraging everybody else, but step up. You know, we got to trust him when we don't see him. Trust him when he's asleep. Trust him when we don't know, when we're getting wet because life is spilling over on us. We have to be willing to trust him then, okay? Oh man, we almost done on time. Ooh, we got out early. All right. Verse 27. The disciples just sat there in awe. Who is this? They asked themselves. Even the wind and waves obey him. This low-hanging fruit. If the wind and the wave obey him, what ought we do?
Low-hanging fruit.
Right?
If he has enough authority that the rotation of the earth will listen to him and hold its breath, what should we do? But that was free. That was love. Fruit was right there. You can pick that off the ground. It was there. It was in the midst of the storm. Y'all get this one. It was in the midst of the storm that they woke their Lord. Right? Lord, save us. It was in the midst of the storm that they woke their Lord. Jesus speaks, quiets the wind and the waves, and the question is, what kind of man is this? Y'all missed it.
That's their true, what they was really thinking, right?
He was just a man. Who is this? What kind of man is this? Lord, save when I'm in trouble. He's divine and holy when I'm in trouble. He's all powerful and almighty. He has all authority and all power. He knows everything. He's omniscient when I'm in trouble. Go fight my battles, God. You strong enough to handle it when I'm in trouble.
Wow.
But when the wind and the waves stop and the chaos of the storm lays down,
Come on.
then it's, what kind of man is this?
Come on.
What kind of dude is this? Man, Jesus really cool guy. He got us out of that, didn't he? It's almost like his status drops. He should have been, my God. He's God with us. Or look at this. How powerful and divine. Come on, y'all, let's serve. We'll tell everybody. We go. But no, what kind of dude is this?
Wow.
That's what we do that all the time. We come to Jesus' emergency room all the time. And when he patches up, we're like, God, I'm broke, I'm limping, help me. He helps us, and then we go back to what we were doing and say, thank you, Doc. What's his name? Where did you go? Well, I don't know. That hospital. What's the doctor's name? I'm not sure. That's what we do in the emergency room, right? We don't know the name of the nurse. We don't know. And sometimes we forget the hospital.
Jesus.
I think I went to Robert. No, St. Peter. They took me one of them hospitals. We don't really remember. Why? Because the doctor, the nurse, the medicine is not important. What's important is fix my problem. And the same thing is here. That a lot of times Jesus is not important. It's not important. It's not really important. Who he is and what he's about and what he requires of me and how I should love him and how I should serve him. He really ain't important. What's really important is Jesus is, I got this issue and I need you to fix it. And that's how we sometimes deal with the master. We wake up the Lord, but we examine the man. Okay? they also, or what led to some of that, is that they noticed what happened out there. They did not take note of what happened in here. They noticed that the chaos stopped. They noticed that the wind stopped blowing and the waves laid down. They noticed that they were no longer in any kind of danger out there. But what they did not notice is that the fear was gone. That the threat of death was no longer there. They did not notice that God had refreshed their spirit and given them an opportunity to look out and see things differently.
Wow.
So they saw what happened out there. But what they didn't do was sometimes, no, a lot of times, I and we have an issue of looking internally. We have an issue of looking and forgetting to look what God has done in us. How he's changed us and renewed us and refreshed who we are, giving us a new perspective, a new way to view life and see the world, that we can embrace it differently, that we don't have to be. We can see what happened out there. God handled that. God shut that down. God did this thing. God paid that bill. God gave me that car. God set me up. Look what God did out there. But what we miss is what he did in here. What he did inside us. And so they missed that. They missed that they didn't have any fear, that the threat of death was gone. And so when you miss that, because he's just the man. So they was examining the man and not the God who has changed them. So they wasn't examining themselves. They was like, what kind of man is this? Well, who is this right here? But there's a technique I'm gonna teach y'all real quick when we dealing with folk who want to debate you and Jehovah's Witnesses and folks like that who want to come and get you, and they ask you a question. Don't ever answer it. Ask them a question. So if they say, do you believe there's a heaven and hell? If you ain't got no other question to ask them this. Well, what do you believe? Ask them, because what happens is the person who asks the question guides or directs the conversation. And when you ask the question, your question demands now that they explain or at least expose a portion of their reason for asking. So when they ask the question, but then you ask them, and now they have to expose a little bit as to why they ask you what they ask you. And so now you're getting closer to what the real question is, and not just something that they're going to use to trap you, set you up, or whatever the case may be. So we have here that we see that when Jesus asked them the question, because they came to him and they said to him, don't you, some of the other translators said, don't you care that we're going to die? Jesus, save us. Don't you know? Look, see what happened. They come to him and they come with the first thing. They approach him. Jesus then doesn't deal with what's going on. He doesn't deal with the storm. Remember, what Jesus first deals with is them. He says to them, why are you so afraid? You know, you have little faith. Why are you so afraid? Well, this question answers that question. Because Jesus made them look at their reasoning, their source. He made them look at themselves. He gets us closer to what their real issue is. Why they didn't have the faith it took to believe him. He helps us get there. Because their question, who is this, answers the question, why are you afraid? See, if we don't know who Jesus is, then our situation scares us. If we lose sight of who Christ is, so when Jesus says, why are you so afraid? The answer is, who are you? Because if we don't know who he is, what he can do, what he's capable of, the power and the strength that he has, if we don't have an understanding and acceptance of that, then when life happens around us, it scares the bejesus out of us because we don't know what it is. We have no category to put it in. We don't have anywhere to hang it. There's not enough hooks to put life on. So we don't know what to do with it because we don't know who Jesus is. But once we start understanding that he's really is all powerful, that he has all authority, not only in the world, but all authority over my life, that he is in complete and absolute control and in charge of who I am. So it's not just me calling on him when I'm afraid or picking him up when I'm happy and putting him down when I'm angry. I can't lay him aside to give you a piece of my mind, because if I do, I ain't got none left. I have to make sure that he's the one. So once I do that, once I got him there, understand Jesus, now the world is not such a scary place. So ye of little faith is because we don't know who Jesus is. We run out of faith and fear invades our lives, primarily because we don't know who Jesus is. We lose track of who he is and who he is in our lives. We lose track of how much he loves us, what he gave for us, and how he's going to fight for us. We lose track of what he requires of us, and we start acting as though he's putting restrictions on our lives rather than the fact he's looking out for us and giving us the best life. We start debating with him as though our will is the best way, and he should baptize our desire rather than allowing us to follow him fully and absolutely, because we lose track of Jesus. When we do that, we get in trouble. We don't know what he's about. We don't know what he's up to. You remember when his parents lost him? You remember that? You remember what he said? What did he say? Right. Why you look right? Why didn't you know what? Some translators say, why didn't you know I would be about my father's business? And other translators says, what you should have known I was in my father's house. Okay, about his business in the house, either one. But you should have known I was about my father's business. Well, why didn't they know he was about his father's business? Because they had lost him. Because they didn't know where he was. They didn't fully understand. So we have to be able to go and know who Jesus is, and then we'll understand not only what he requires of us, our lives will start making sense. It'll be more, we understand it more, okay? So, what are some of the major points that Matthew is helping us with? Just three. You've already got them, but since I wrote them down, I'm going to give them to you, right? One of the major points is this. You're right, and you're always right to put your faith and your confidence in Jesus. No matter what the world looks like, no matter what they say, no matter who makes fun of you, no matter who tell you there's a cop-out, it don't make sense, it's illogical, you are always right to put your confidence in Jesus. But here's a test. If Jesus always agreed with you, it's probably not Jesus. If every time you go to put your faith in the Lord, and he's saying exactly what you want to say, he's feeling exactly like you feel, I know this is God, it probably ain't God. Because sometimes the Lord turns you in directions you don't want to go. He puts you on paths you don't want to travel. He puts burdens on you that you don't want to carry. So if the Lord seems to, me and Jesus always get along, we always agree. Well, it probably ain't him. Okay. Second thing is, never, ever, ever forget that Jesus is God with us. And that's what makes it okay to always trust him. Because he's God over every situation. God in the midst of every situation. I'm going to give you a question that you can ask. You know, sometimes you say, but I don't know what God wants me to do. How many times have you said that? I don't know what God wants me to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what God wants me to do. I don't know what, Lord, just show me. I'll do it if you show me. All right. Here's a question that you can ask yourself. But you can't be selfish when you ask, and you got to be open for the answer. All right? So if you don't want to hear it, put your do it like that. Here's the question. Lord, whose burden do you want me to lighten? See, when we serve God, we always minister to people.
That's right.
Serving God, you always touch somebody's life. You can't serve God without blessing somebody.
Come on, come on.
You can't. So you have to ask yourself the question, Lord, whose burden do you want me to lighten? Whose load do you want me to shoulder and share? Ask that question and be open. He may send you to somebody who hates you. He may send you somebody that you don't like too good. But you got, if you ask the question, you got to be open for the answer. Lord, whose burden do you want me to lighten? You can only ask that if you know that Jesus is God with us and that you can trust him in every situation. Then you can ask and you can feel free about doing it. Okay? And if you're not free, y'all get this. Thank you, Lord. If you're not free to obey God, then you're not free to be fully blessed by God. If I'm not free enough to obey him, I cancel many of the blessings he has for me. If I'm not free to obey him, I'm not free to be fully blessed by him. I imprison myself, and in so doing, I lock away many of the blessings God has for me. Freedom is surrendered to God in obedience. That was good. Write that down. Freedom. I'm stuck. Freedom is surrendered to God in obedience. It is. Because that's what makes us free. That's how we're free. Okay. Last point. Faith in Jesus is our source of salvation. It's not our tradition. It is not how we were raised. God knows we need to stop saying that. That's what I was taught. That's how I was raised. That's what they showed me. Okay. Okay, we always raised that way. What we need to do is know that Jesus in his way is the right way to salvation and freedom. Jesus in his way. Okay, all right, they said that. And they meant it from their heart. They meant you all the good and all the love. But that ain't Jesus. See, my mom always told me if they raise their hand, knock them out before they get a chance to hit you. And I grew up with that. I grew up, yes I did. I grew up with that. I had to restrain myself now if you raise your hand. That was good too. But that's not the way. That's not the way, man. You're right. That's not the way. So we gotta trust Jesus for all salvation. All right? All right. So why are you so afraid? You little thing. Don't let Jesus go to sleep. I'm done. Y'all got questions? I don't know how to end it, so I'm just quitting. I'm done. We good?